I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Mark Reilly ahead of this week's crucial tie between Kilmarnock and Copenhagen. Mark, thanks for joining us here on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. A huge game for Kilmarnock and Derek McInnes' side. What are you expecting from the tie?
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity for Kilmarnock. They worked so hard last season to get to this position. In Copenhagen, they've got quite a rich European history. I mean, I think it's 6 times they've qualified for the group stages of the Champions League in recent years. I think they've made a decent start to their season. I think they're sitting second in the Danish league. So they'll obviously be favourites in the game, I would think. So I think Kilmarnock will have to be at their best to get a result on Thursday evening. But it's not something that they're not capable of, but I do think they'll have to play at their best to come away with a result.
Mark, obviously that first leg away from home over in Copenhagen. How important do you think it is that Kilmarnock, they stay in the game and they don't let the first tie get away from them?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think it is important. They'll be looking to get through Thursday night and still be in a position where the tie is still alive for them, taking them to Rugby Park. Kilmarnock do well normally at Rugby Park. I think they'll probably be a little bit disappointed with their domestic start, obviously, to the season. But normally they're quite difficult to play against at Rugby Park. So yeah, I think that is the big thing, keeping the tie alive so that they can bring Copenhagen to Rugby Park and still have an opportunity to get into the group stages.
You have to say that victory in the last round against Tromsø has to go down as one of the most, memorable nights in Kilmarnock history. To go over to Norway without a lead in the tie and take a victory. How impressed were you with that?
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic win for Kilmarnock. Again, it just shows you what they're capable of when they can play at their best. Especially after the start they've had, because they've had quite a difficult start. I think obviously with the European football, and then the first league game at Celtic Park, which is a really difficult start, and then a really disappointing result at home to St Johnstone. So yeah, to go to Tromsø and get that result was absolutely fantastic. It really was a really great result for them to get through that.
Obviously away from Europe, Kille, they haven't quite started so strong in their league campaign. 3 games, 3 defeats, 7 goals conceded and none scored. Is that a concern for you, or do you think that's just normal given the importance of European football at the moment?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can take it. At the start of the season, it can take some teams maybe half a dozen games to get up and running. And I think the difficulty for Kilmarnock is they've not had that. They've been thrown in at the deep end with the European football. First league game against Celtic at Celtic Park. And so I think when you lose those games, it might dent the confidence a little bit. But I'm sure as the season goes on, I'm sure Kilmarnock will be fine. As we've touched on, they've got a really good manager, experienced manager in Derek, and I'm sure Kilmarnock will come good. But I do think they will be disappointed with the start they've made, especially domestically. Obviously, the European result at Tromsø was fantastic, but other than that, I'm sure they'll be a little bit disappointed and realise that they can do a bit better than they have done.
Mark, I've got to ask about your experiences of European football. You've played in a number of games. What was that atmosphere like away from home and also playing at Rugby Park?
Yeah, no, it was great. Obviously back then, obviously the old firm, as you know, have the kind of monopoly. So to win the cup and play in the old Cup Winners' Cup as it was back then, it was great. I think we played Nice, actually scored in the home tie. So yeah, it was fantastic. We went over. It was Nice's old stadium. I think they've got a new stadium now for the World Cup. So it was the old stadium back then. But it was a fantastic atmosphere, and it was the type of football we weren't used to playing. So it was exciting. I think we didn't play great over there, but we certainly held our own at Rugby Park and kind of pushed. Just ran out a little bit of steam as the game went on, second half. But I did think at one point we were actually going to go through in that tie. The other big kind of European game I can remember is Kaiserslautern, the German side, who back then had some really good players. And again, I think the first leg was over there and we had a few chances to take the lead actually, which would have made it a different tie. But I think they ran out comfortable winners and just had a little bit too much quality for us, to be honest, in the end, and we're fairly comfortable at Rugby Park as well. But it's a great experience for the players playing European football, it really is.
I think Derek McInnes touched on it. He said, for a lot of my players, this is their first experience of European football, to go abroad, play a game, do all of the media, As a player who's played in European football, how tough really is it, and how different is the matchday experience in European football?
Yeah, totally different and exciting. Obviously, there's a familiarity. You're playing Scottish football, even the players you're playing against, you know them because you play against them so often, and then all of a sudden you're playing European football against players you don't know. You don't know what they're like. Can be really exciting. Different style of play as well. So yeah, it's a real education, I think, for the players, and a real challenge for them, and especially when they're playing a side like Copenhagen, who, as I've touched on, have got a fairly good European history in recent times with some of their achievements.
In between the two ties against Copenhagen, they obviously have to take on Aberdeen. It was reported at the weekend that they may be trying to get that game postponed. Do you think that's a good thing for Kilmarnock, or do you think at this point in the season, playing games, getting that fitness under your belt is the most important thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if your squad's big enough and you can rotate players, do I think it's the right thing to get the game postponed? Probably not. I mean, I think they knew before the season started that, you know, if they were successful in Europe, these games would come thick and fast at this stage of the season. Yeah, I think Kilmarnock will be fine. You know, I think obviously, depending on the result, as we touched on, confidence can be such a big thing in football. So if they were to get a really disappointing result in Copenhagen, then it could be a difficult one then against Aberdeen. But they've just got to get on with it and dig in, and that's what they're here for. This is what they wanted. They wanted these European ties. They wanted all these games at the start of the season. That's what the aim was last season, to finish high up in the league and qualify for Europe. That's the aim. So when that happens, I don't think you can complain too much.
Mark, before I let you go, do you think Kille could do it? Could they be getting another famous European night?
I think they can, yeah, but I do think they'll have to play at their best.
Amazing. Mark, thank you so much for joining us here.
No, thanks, Patrick. Thank you. Thanks for having me.